What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the show. Joining me, as always, is my noisy dog Lilu, who you will hear in the background. It is what it is. This is a very special episode because today is going to be the first day that I have to tick the box saying that this is a paid promotion, because technically it says if you've received anything of value, and I think that I definitely have today. So, as you all are probably aware, if you've been listening to my previous casts, is that I get a good buddy named Josh who has his own company, Sand Dune Customs, and he's been really supportive and really awesome, and he sent me some test promotion merch, and so that's actually what I'm wearing right now. You can see it's hard to make out, but it says Nick 101. I'm keeping it in. It was his idea to have keeping it in be a kind of catchphrase of mine because he thought that it was kind of hilarious from the first video. He got the T-shirt. He did a sample mug. Coasters for said mug. I mean, he even did a pillowcase, which he had no idea was going to fit perfectly on my lumbar pillow. So it was just such a super cool thing for him to do. Like I said, he's technically a non-sponsor. He's not paying me a dime in order to pimp out his merchandise, but it was super sweet of him to do. I'm super psyched. I'm going to be wearing this the whole episode, and he's just a really great guy. So if you haven't already, please just go over to Sand Dune Customs. He has his own website. You can find him on Facebook. He's literally the first thing that pops up on the net if you type in Sand Dune Customs, which I think is just awesome. I mean, even if you're on YouTube and you type in Nick 101, you have to scroll past, I think, two little kids, two little kids pages that somehow have more of a following and more videos put out than I do. It is what it is. Again, this is just a pet project, self-starter. This is in its infancy. So the fact that there's some toddlers out there that have more hits than I do, that's fine. More power to them. That's awesome that they're putting it out there and having fun with it. So, yeah, welcome. So, happy Monday. How was your weekend? Hope you had a good one. If you didn't, then hopefully next weekend will be a good one. And if you're in retail, then hopefully Christmas will fall on a weekend, or you'll have some vacation time coming up. I have those feels. I know what it's like being in retail. Got to work every weekend. So, not anymore for me, thank God. But it is also, I think I talked about in previous episodes, causing a bit of an issue with trying to get all of these out. So I'm going to keep on trying as best as I can to fulfill my promise of giving you guys 3 episodes per week. I don't know how long I can maintain that, but I'm going to do my darndest because I really want to get some of this information out there. I want to get some of myself out there, and it is what it is. So, this weekend was interesting. So, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but I've lived in this area most of my life, and I hadn't heard of this, but I just went to a Maple Weekend for the first time of my life. So, what that is the area that I live in is wrought with maple trees, and so the people that have enough of an area to tap those maple trees to make maple syrup will have an open house so that you can go there, buy some merch, get samples pre-COVID. Unfortunately, most of the places weren't able to do samples because of the pandemic, but it's just really interesting to see the whole process, how it works, get some stuff that's super, super fresh, was probably bottled within, a week or two of you getting there. So it was a super cool time. And some of the stuff I already knew. So as you might be aware or might not be aware, and there goes the noisy dog. It's all good. So that's Lila in the background playing with her ball. So as you may or may not be aware, the process of doing maple syrup is ridiculous. So it's something along the lines of every 46 gallons of sap that you tap, you can make about a gallon of maple syrup. Now, again, this is Nick 101. None of my facts are checked, so I think it's something around there. Let's just call it an even 30 or 40 gallons, and that makes 1 gallon of maple syrup. So quite a lot has to be tapped in order to even make a little bit. If you're ever wondering why maple syrup is so expensive, that's why. Now, that I already knew. Here's an interesting little tidbit that I did not know that I picked up. So, all of those syrups that I grew up on, I won't name names, but just suffice to say that quite a few of them are now in the spotlight because they have either racist packaging or shaped bottles. And I don't think that we should be focusing too much on whether or not the packaging or bottles are racist because they aren't, but more so we should be paying attention to the fact that all of those syrups contain 0% maple syrup. Zero. I want that to sink in for a little bit because my whole time growing up, I knew that those bottles weren't pure maple syrup. Okay, I figured that it was a watered down. They added some other ingredients in order to get that maple syrupy taste without having to use up too much of the expensive maple syrup. No, all of those that I and that probably you grew up with, all those maple syrups have 0% maple syrup. That is all just high fructose corn syrup, a whole bunch of other stuff in there that makes it give it a syrupy kind of look and taste, but it has absolutely no maple syrup in it whatsoever. Blew my mind. This is something that you probably already know, and you're just like, yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I thought that that was insane. So yeah, all of those childhood memories that you have of maple syrup are none at all. Okay, Lulu, that's a little ridiculous. Thank you so much for putting your head right underneath where I have the thing. Okay. Again, I'm keeping it in. and I feel like it's still an important ambiance to have a noisy dog in the background because I am a dog owner. That is part of dog life. I do have a dog playlist on my channel, and this is what you have to live with if you're going to have a dog. So, speaking of, she was a big part of this weekend because we were able to take her out because most of the stuff is outdoors, and then we would take turns having her on the leash while we went inside to either purchase something or just have a tour. And so she had a big day. She got to meet her first cow, which was awesome. Not so much for the cow. The cow did not like her at all. So they both, sniffed through the fence. And after a couple seconds, the cow was like, "All right, I'm done," and started banging its head against the fence. Lilu has no idea what's going on. So she's like, "Yeah, you want to play? Here, let's get you out of the fence so that we can play." She didn't know what was going on. She's one of the smartest dogs, one of the dumbest dogs I've ever met, which is pretty much every dog I've ever met. They're always some of the smartest and some of the dumbest. And so that didn't last too long, but she did get to meet her first cow. And it's kind of funny. I was hesitating to tell you this story because I feel like it might be something that I would want to save for the dog channel, but I want to catch you up on what's been going on in my life, and this is something that recently happened. So she met a dog off leash, which right away is always a fight or flight, response because it's like, okay, is this a dog that actually is good with all walks of other dogs, or is this one where the pet parents are just kind of in denial and this might be an issue? And it's 50-50 when it comes to that. Again, all statistics on Nick 101 are made up, disclaimer. But I feel like half the time it's genuinely the dog that can pick up on any signal that it needs to. Oh, okay, this is not a friendly dog. I'll keep my distance. And the other ones are just pet parents that are like, "How dare your dog attack my dog?" Well, my dog was on a leash. Your dog wasn't. I mean, whose fault is this really? That's why there are leash laws in many states. Anyway, not to jump up on that soapbox, but that's just how I feel. Especially if it's a pet store. Quite often there's going to be dogs that are not dog friendly, but they're in there for other reasons. Either because they have an in-house vet, they're there for grooming. So it's always a good idea to keep a dog on a leash, especially indoors. Outdoors, if this is really just a wise sage dog that knows all, then fine, okay. Anyway, so this off-leash dog comes up to Lilu, and so here's the problem with her. So with her upbringing, both before we got her and then afterwards, she started off in a pack of really huge, Rottweilers and pit bulls, and is used to playing pretty rough, and somewhere along the lines didn't pick up the whole etiquette of you sniff my butt, I sniff your butt, then we can play if both of us want to. So the other dog was an older dog, came up, did the courteous thing with, hey, let's sniff noses. Yes, I will allow you to sniff me. Now I want to sniff you. And Lilu does not do that part of it. So she was like, okay, well, I sniffed your butt. Now let's play. The old dog was like, I'm not into playing anymore. I'm kind of an old man. Let me just sniff your butt real quick, though, just for, posterity's sake. I think there's a pun in there somewhere. And then we'll be on our merry way. She wasn't getting it. So for like 5 minutes, they had this standoff where the other dog was like, can I sniff your butt? She was like, no, let's play. And he was like, no, but can I sniff your butt? She was like, no, but let's play. And so after 5 minutes, she was like, okay, this older dog is not going to um, play with me. So she went back to trying to go see what's up with the cow. And it's hilarious. If you don't know too much about dogs, butt sniffing is very much a way of saying hello, a way of shaking hands, a way of, naming names, because they do have the scent gland in the butt. So dog will, sniff the butt. Okay, so that's you. They sniff the butt. Okay, so that's me. So the way that Lilu does greetings, it's basically the equivalent of if I went up, if I went up to somebody and so I say, hello, pleased to meet you. My name is Nick. And your name is? Or, if I screwed that up, but I'm keeping it in. So it would basically be the equivalent of, saying, hi, my name is Nick, and you are? And then she'd say, happy to be here. I'd be like, no, 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 okay, you don't understand. I'm Nick, and you identify yourself as, and then she goes, non-binary. Like, I didn't even ask that. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. Look, I'm Nick, and you would address yourself as, and she goes, well, I don't like labels. I'm like, oh my God, you bitch. And in this case, this is not a swear because this is literally a female dog we're talking about. You just get frustrated. Is this a good bit? Is this a bad bit? I don't care. I'm keeping it in, but, this is something that I've had to deal with her. She was a stray, and then shelter, then us, then pandemic hit. So her socialization has been very much less than what I would have preferred it to be. So, needless to say, she doesn't have the best etiquette when it comes to dogs and people. So when it comes to people that she's excited to see, she will jump up to head height because she's a kangaroo. If it's a little kid, she'll run up, and sometimes she's good about just gently sniffing the face, but more often than not, she just goes right up to the kid's face and then starts licking because usually the kid has about 2 meals and 4 snacks worth of smells and food still left on their face. So same thing with dogs. She'll let them she'll sniff their butt and then immediately try to play and not let them sniff her butt. If it's an older, smaller dog, she doesn't seem to get that they're afraid of her and would like her to back off. She is kind of nice with puppies. Most dogs naturally, instinctively are gentle with puppies. It's kind of an evolution thing where it's like, okay, this is one of the newer ones, so we got to be gentle, otherwise that's the end of the species. But I liken it. So I'm a former dog trainer. I have a dog that doesn't behave like she should. So I always feel like I'm embarrassed and apologizing for her. I liken it to if you go to a really fancy dinner party and you have a plus one, and your plus one is your buddy that has never really been out in high society life. So you bring him there, and they have like the cloth napkins. It's not even paper napkins, it's cloth napkins. They have more than one set of spoons and forks all laid out. And then your buddy comes in, and so he's, arms on the table, using his hands instead of the silverware, open mouth chewing. He doesn't take the napkin onto his lap. He tucks it in here, even though you're not eating lobster or ribs. He just tucks it in there. Even blows his nose on said napkin, and like the whole time you're just he makes an off-color joke, and the whole time you're making apologetic looks. Afterwards, you're apologizing profusely to the family. Afterwards you send him a text saying, I'm so sorry. I won't bring him again. Again, I don't know if this is a good bit or a bad bit, but I'm leaving it in. That's just kind of how I think of things when it comes to uh, having a lot of dog experience, and then having a dog that isn't that well behaved. It seems like you're a hypocrite that doesn't know what they're talking about. But there's some things that you can help. There's some things that you can't. I mean, not to get too much onto dog talk because this isn't the dog channel, but this is my life, so you're stuck with me. So one of the things is that she was watched over for a week, and the dog that she was with is the kind of dog that, oh, somebody's at the door. I have to run, charge, jump at the door, practically break it down, bark furiously at anybody that intrudes. And so she picked that up. And if you want to get it from a dog trainer's point of view, basically with dogs, they're bred with a purpose. And the ones that aren't bred with a purpose, they still have some instincts from way back when they were wolves that I need to help with the hunt in order to justify getting some of the food. So you go out to work, they stay at home, and you come back sometimes with food, oftentimes not, because you can usually buy a pretty big bag at a time. And so they're like, oh, well, you went on the hunt without me, so why am I getting fed as well? Like, what am I bringing to the table in order to get some of this food? So if they're not assigned a job, they will assign themselves one. And more often than not, the dog's thought logic is, oh, well, you left me at home, so my job is probably to guard the cave, as it were. So that's why, very quickly, with some dogs that were not bred, a lot of dogs that were bred for size, for instance, like Chihuahuas, very quickly will just assign themselves, well, I'm going to be the dog that barks anytime company comes over, and that's why you have me. And it's very frustrating. It's very hard to untrain. And apparently, that's what almost got her a shot today. I feel like I really need to address this, and I do apologize that this is going to be a pretty heavy dog cast, but um, so while my girl was at home with our girl uh, during lunchtime to let her out, a cop came to the door, banging on the door, the way cops do, and Lilu immediately starts barking. So she goes to answer the door. Can I help you? He goes, are you the one who called 911? She goes, oh my God, no. And then so he explains, where the call came from. She's giving him directions, and the whole time Lilu is furiously barking and trying to, get to said cop. Again, much like a Chihuahua, it isn't like she would ever actually do anything once she got to the cop. Unfortunately, the cop doesn't know this. Lilu somehow manages to get past, my girl, and the cop, is backing up, has his hand on the gun, and it's something that I really want to address. Is that I see so many videos out there of a dog that charges a cop, and their first and final instinct is to shoot the dog, and it blows my mind because again, I've never been a cop. I've only ever been a dog lover, but I feel like if I did decide to take on the role of being a cop, that I would much rather offer my forearm and have to get bruises and stitches and, figure out a way to restrain the dog. Yeah, I'll get a little injured. I'm not going to die. I mean, by the way, just so you know, if you're ever, attacked by a unfriendly dog or, hopefully, a soul, wolf or whatever, um, that is the first line of defense is you offer them the meat of your forearm so that way you have your other legs and hands in order to try and deal with the problem. And generally, the most that's going to happen is that you're going to need some stitches, and it's going to be pretty bruised, for a while. But hopefully, that should be your natural instinct anyway. But definitely that's the way to go, and then deal with it from there. But I see so many videos of cops just going for the gun method. What's amazing to me too, by the way, is that said cops typically have mace on them. I mean, there's mace for bears, for crying out loud. Dogs have the most heightened sense of smell ever. Not quite as much as pigs, but I mean, come on, it's still like a million times more than us. And so, yeah, you mace a dog. I mean, he's not going to keep coming after you. I don't care how determined they are. So I can't believe that that's not the said go-to. I mean, I would still be pretty pissed if a cop maced my dog, but a dog will recover from that. So I'm just a little infuriated, and so I hate to get on a soapbox, and I know that as of the time of this video coming out, that there has been a lot of controversy about cops not using proper procedures on humans, so kneeling on necks and stuff. So this seems like a weird soapbox to get onto, but I feel like the kneeling on necks and inappropriate subduing the cops have done has been addressed. Hopefully, it'll get corrected. But this is one that I felt very strongly for a really long time. Anytime I see a police video of them shooting a dog that's going after them. It just breaks my heart and it blows my mind. You know, look at postal workers. You know, I mean, how many dogs do they have to deal with in a day? And I don't think I've ever heard. I mean, maybe there has been. I didn't research it. Again, Nick 101. Nothing's researched. But I don't think I've ever heard of a postal worker firing a gun at a dog that attacked them. And in most cases, the postal worker is one of the dog's favorite people. They actually show up regularly. They give him pets. The only person that gives them pets, even though there's, a video of like thousands of people. I saw a video of like, it was a pretty busy street, like, a bunch of people walking by all day long. It's a pretty big, intimidating looking dog, and literally that postal worker is the only one that actually stops and gives some lovin's. And I love the ones that the dog's so happy to get the mail that even if there's no mail for that day, the postal worker still stops at the house and gives a little piece of paper saying, the dog's mail on it, so the dog feels like they accomplished something that day. That just that warms my absolute heart. Again, that goes back to the whole thing of dogs need a job. So for that dog, its job is to bring the mail, to the house, and so the postal worker helps them accomplish that job. And again, that's just so heartwarming for me. So I really hope that that's something that we can be aware of, in the future, is that, even if that dog was coming to try and bite, honestly, is a couple of, stitches in your arm, maybe a few days off of work, a little workman's comp, is that really, more terrifying than the fact that you now have a life on your hands? I mean, I don't know. What blows my mind is the fact that there's a canine unit in police work, and obviously the ones that shoot the dogs are not involved in the canine unit. I cannot see anybody working closely side by side with a German Shepherd and ever firing the gun at a dog that's attacking them because they're afraid. So maybe a solution would be some of those canine. They could start having some of those seminars where the canine unit guys kind of sit down the non-canine unit guys and go like, hey, listen, these animals are pretty amazing. They help us sniff for drugs. They help us take down running suspects. They are a police officer. And so even though the one that's coming at you from the yard of possibly a criminal or whatever, even though it's not a police officer, that's a dog that had the potential to be one, and it was just raised not to be one. But it still has that DNA in it. It's nuts that it's interesting because the German Shepherds are typically the ones that we use for the police work because yes, they are big, strong, they can jump ridiculously high, and they are very smart. They're very trainable. They're also notorious for being one of the dogs that forgets their lessons pretty quickly. Like a German Shepherd needs to be constantly trained and retrained and retrained, whereas some other breeds might actually remember the lesson without as many updates. Anyway, that's what I heard. Again, none of this is researched, and I'm sorry that I kind of went off on a little bit of a rant there, but yeah, you know what? Let's get back to the maple thing. Let's close let's close out that thread on a good note. So to sum up, the Maple Weekend was awesome, and I get to have a genuine maple donut. So silly me, this being my first Maple Weekend. When you think maple donut, what do you think? You think what you would get at a typical donut shop, where it's just a plain, white donut that has that that maple, glaze on top. I don't know if there's any maple syrup whatsoever in the toppings of a maple donut, but what I had was actually a genuine maple donut. So it was a basic donut, kind of like you would, get at a an apple cider donut kind of thing like that. Very similar to that, but it was just an actual plain donut, and it had maple sugar sprinkled on it, and especially just fresh from the batch. Like there's honestly, I got the opposite of spoiled by having the donut chains, where even though it's fresh from that day, it's not fresh from the batter. It's not fresh from getting heated up. Like if you have a donut that's still warm that you bite into, there's nothing to compare it to. It's insane how good it was. And I was like, oh, that's a maple donut. like like the white one with the glaze on, the maple stuff on top. Now I realize that's not a maple donut. Still one of my favorite ones, by the way. Like, I'm not pooping on maple donuts from say the Double D's and stuff, but that was definitely a unique experience where it's like, oh, this actually is a whole other way to taste it. So if you never have, I highly suggest you do. The thing about the real genuine ones, though, is that usually if you're going to have one, you want to have it the same day because, again, no preservatives, nothing to keep it moist. It's it's going to be pretty hard by day two, and you're going to be able to hammer nails in by day three. But if you have it when it's fresh, it was quite a unique experience. And God, the amount of stuff that you can make out of maple is insane. I mean, there's maple peanut butter fudge, there's maple honey, yes, maple sugar, but also maple, different maple spices, maple hot sauce. I mean, the list goes on. It's very interesting, and it made me want to try. I was talking to a coworker, and she said that she actually enjoys maple syrup in her coffee, which intrigued me because I am now a black coffee drinker, but in my past I did do some cream and I did do some sugar, and I had heard at one point that if you're out of cream and if you're out of sugar, you can do honey in order to sweeten up that coffee. I tried it, wasn't a fan. It wasn't horrible, but it wasn't my cup of tea. Even though we're talking about coffee, God, that was a really bad pun, but I'm keeping it in. I'm keeping it in. So I definitely would like to try maple syrup at another point in time because that one seems like because she said that yes, I tried honey, and all it did was now it's honey and coffee, and it is and they kind of clash. Whereas if you do maple syrup and coffee, she goes it just elevated the coffee. It was a compliment. It wasn't a contrast to it. So I was very intrigued, and if you're a coffee drinker, give it a shot. Yeah, you know what? Leave a comment. I'd be interested to hear if this is your first time hearing of even the concept and you try it out and you enjoyed it or you hated it. Please, I would love to have more of a back and forth, with my followers, and that's what's funny is like I I um I do plan on having Josh from Sand Dune Customs on as a guest. He's probably gonna be my first guest. He's more than happy to do it. He's an awesome guy, and I was just thinking that it if at ever to any point in time that I'm doing one of these podcasts and he happens to call, like you've seen in other podcasts, it's just like, oh look, hey, he's calling, put him on speakerphone. Hey, you're on the cast, and I would probably say, hey, go ahead and give a shout out to my fans or fan. Well, you, okay, give a shout out to yourself. I know that I have more than that, to the handful of people that have subscribed to me. I do appreciate it. The more I look into this stuff, the more I realize that the reason why all of those channels are saying hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, is because it literally costs you about 2 seconds in order to subscribe. It costs you less. It costs you less than a second to like. But the more that you do that, the more likely they are to be able to have YouTube get paid for ads on their channel, and then the more likelihood that they can actually see some of that money. So what took you a second out of your day will actually give those people a little bit of extra cash. And in today's world, I mean, who the heck couldn't use a little bit of extra unless you're one of the multi-billionaires that shall go unnamed because like they need any more promotion. But yeah, so if you're over watching Josh's stuff and he's like, please like the video, there's a reason why. It isn't just for ego. It's literally to help out somebody who's trying to do a small business, which again, that's one of the reasons why I had so much fun visiting the sugar houses. That those are people that are just doing their own thing, and give them all the business that you can. I'm not saying that you should poop on your childhood memories and not pick up a bottle of the artificial stuff every once in a while just for some nostalgia's sake. But honestly, you should get some pure maple syrup. It's almost always going to be sourced from somebody who's, well, in my case, local, but at least in your case, that it's somebody that's privately owned. And one of those people, by the way, coming up soon is going to be my girl's dad. He's not online yet, but he did just, he has a new property and it has maple trees on it, so he decided to throw his hand into throw his hat into the ring, and he is planning on selling soon. He is going to have a website, and that is going to be another one of my non-sponsors coming up pretty soon. Of course, as soon as he does give us a bottle of maple syrup for free, then I'm going to have to go ahead and click that paid promotions button. Just, it's a technicality, but it is going to be true. But I'm looking forward to that later on. So, yeah, um, if you're somebody that I know that does do their own thing, and I haven't mentioned you yet, please, either reach out to me or put it in the comments, which I'm gonna try and make sure to read all of them if I can, and let me know if I can give you a shout out at some point. I like to try and get permission, which is why I mentioned a coffee one in an earlier episode, and I feel kind of bad because I still haven't had a chance to be like, hey, is this cool? Because it's kind of nobody watches it, so it's not really a big deal just yet. But if I do accidentally say something, controversial, then I don't want them to ever have to suffer from business. Which is why most of the ones that are going to be small and locally owned, I mean, we'll talk about it, but I probably am not going to ask them for any compensation because it's something that I'm happy to do, and I'm just really pleased when I see that going on in other walks of life. I've mentioned it before, but some of the podcasts that I like following, and they're always just being a guest star on each other's, and oftentimes the paid promotion people seem to go to all the different ones. So I don't know if that's because they're like, hey, thanks for paying me. By the way, I got a buddy that has this many viewers, and you should definitely be a sponsor for them too. I mean, I'm sure a lot of that stuff is going on in the background, and that's just awesome. Um, the older you get, the fewer friends that you have. Till you're down to just about a handful. And if it's something that you can do to help them out, I think just more power to them. Keep it up. Keep up a sense of community. It's weird how the more connected we get, the more disconnected we get. So to make that little bit of effort to continue to when a buddy asks for help, you help them. Even if they don't ask for help, give them the help anyway, and just when they say, "Oh, you didn't have to do that," just say, "No, I didn't," and that's why it's awesome. So yes, hello. Click, click, click with the fingernails. I'm working on getting her fingernails down so that she's not as clicky during these videos. But much like many dog owners, they realize the quick grows almost as fast as the nail does because they're not out, digging. Oh my God, dog! I love you too, but please stop moving the table, okay? Like a lot of dogs that don't have to do a lot of digging, that might not even have access to dig. Um, her quicks grow almost just as fast as her nails do, so trying to keep those down is just a nightmare. So she's going to be clicky probably for a while until I can dial them back. Because you got to get right up until they're almost bleeding before the quick actually dials back. I think I mentioned that in a previous grooming episode. If you're not interested in the dog episodes, well, then I'm very sorry because this is a very dog heavy one. I will try and move on, but again, big part of my life, so it is what it is. What can you do? And she, I swear to God, seems to want to be a part of these videos because she's just laying in her bed, being a boring little girl, and then as soon as I turn this on and I start talking to it, she's like, "Oh yeah, where was that ball? Where was that really noisy bone that I can just throw into the hardwood floor and start making a ruckus? Oh, Dad's occupied with the, whatever that mechanical thing is that humans always seem to like to stare at and talk into. Well, now I'm gonna go and try and bury my head over in his lap, or, bang my nose against the table that the laptop's sitting on while I try and get the bone that I had no interest in for the past 3 days, but now suddenly is the most important thing in the universe." So yeah, again, I do apologize for the shaking, rocking, banging, clicking, but that's the world that I'm living in right now. And again, I don't feel like I should coop her up. I mean, I have been trying to stick her out on the porch with a Kong or a bone while I do the animal videos, the specific animal videos, like the hamsters and the mice and stuff, because I understand that can be distracting, and I understand that look, I'm here for the content. I don't care that you have a dog. I really would like to hear what you have to say, and if you suddenly have to keep stopping in order to talk to the dog, or throw something near her so that she hopefully gets distracted and stops making noise. So far that's the only video that I've started to try and stick her somewhere so that it's not as distracting. But I feel like if it's just me talking to you, if it's me doing the dog video, having a dog in the background just makes sense. It's good ambiance. I'll get off. All right, I feel like a broken record. I keep on talking about this, but I just kind of want to feel that you know where I'm coming from. If you're somebody that is just so easily, squirrel, just shiny thing, if it's very hard for you to focus, if there's a lot of background noises, and this is a complaint that you have, I apologize, and honestly, if you feel the need to comment about it, if I feel like there's enough people that are doing that, then maybe I'll just have this, separate, specific channel that she can be the background dog in, and I can just keep the amount of distractions to a minimum for the other videos. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just making a mountain out of a molehill, and you guys could care less, or maybe even the mic's not picking up on it as well as I thought. I don't typically review the entire video when I watch these. It's awkward. It's something that I learned when I threw my head into stand up. Is one of the important things is if you really want to improve any. Speaking of annoying things, just that being a little off kilter, even though it's not a big deal, is kind of bugging me. So, um, I figured out that when you do stand up, you're really not going to improve unless you do it and you do it and you do it and you do it. And also, what really will help is recording your sets. Now, ideally, that would be with video, but even if it's just audio, it means a lot because when you're up on stage, you sometimes it takes years to master the being able to feel an audience, and that's one thing that I kind of like about this is that I never have to worry about that. Is that I'm never really going to be able to feel you, besides through feedback. The amount of subscribers I get, it's gonna be very vague. It's not going to be immediate. It's not going to be visceral like it is when you're on stage. And a lot of times you're so in the moment, you're so trying to remember the next joke. You're trying to you know pick up, keep the momentum going. You're trying to gloss over the fact that that joke did not go well, and you might not understand exactly why it didn't until later on. And so being able to re-listen to yourself is very important. Where you're just like, no wonder that didn't work. First of all, I missed that part of the joke entirely, and second of all, some were still chuckling from that previous one, so they didn't even hear the setup. And it's something that you kind of have to do. Maybe if you get good later on, you don't. But I'll tell you right now, it is one of the most awkward things listening to yourself bomb on stage for the second time. You already had to do it in person, and now you have to listen to a recording. So it's very cringy. It's very uncomfortable. So mostly what I do when I review these videos is that I try and just, click through and make sure you can hear me, that the, uh, really retro setup that I have here isn't hesitating. And, I left it in the first video because I wasn't even aware of it until, again, my buddy Josh, shout out to Josh, pointed out that at some point in there I kind of, it kind of stutters in a spot where it's definitely the recording, not the connection, because he replayed it and it did it again. Again, I like leaving stuff like that in because it shows the growing pains where, maybe hopefully later on when I can afford a really awesome setup, um, it's going to be just killer and there's not going to be any sort of distortion. That I'm going to have like lighting, I'm going to have, high def. But for right now, these are my humble beginnings, and I do appreciate you going on the journey and growing with me. Or if you're somebody that just found me years later and you're watching back just to see how far I've come, I haven't really, you know, at this point, it'd be kind of silly to assume that you haven't heard of Joe Rogan because I think that he has the most viewed podcasts in America, in the world. I don't know, but he talks about like how I think as of this recording, he's been doing it for 11 years. Again, don't fact check, but he's been doing it for over 10. I know that at least because I did see a 10-year episode. Uh, and he says that when he started out, it was literally just something that he was joking around with his buddies. He threw it up online, never thought it would go anywhere. And looking back on them, he says they are just god awful quality, um, almost embarrassing. The stuff he was joking about. And so, I mean, now he's 10 years older, 10 years wiser. And so, he has a producer, he has it, all streamlined. He's a very good speaker now. After doing it for 10 years, he's a great listener. He had to learn the art of, not trying to make everything a joke and not trying to talk over the person that he brought in to talk to. And so I kind of want to maybe, if I've been doing this for a while, I'll rewatch some of his earliest episodes, some of his very first episodes, and then rewatch some of mine, and then I'll feel a little bit better about how it looks. Because right now, I'm just excited to be out there. I'm thrilled to pieces. I feel very lucky and blessed that I have good friends and family that took the few seconds out of their time to like and subscribe, and it's and some of them, especially Josh, are giving a lot of feedback. So that's just pretty cool. Um, and I don't know where this is going to go. I'm almost getting worried because I feel like I might run out of the animal segment before anything. So obviously I'll never end up running out of podcasts because who can't? Well, I guess some people can't, but I mean, honestly, who can't talk to nothing? Who can't talk for an hour about nothing? It doesn't really have to be about anything at all. Most cases, it's going to be about what went on that week or just whatever pops into my little head. But with the dog one, I feel like I could talk about for a long time. I love dogs. I think that the more I learn, the more I realize I don't know about them. So I'm not worried about that one running out too soon. But I did realize there's only a finite amount of animals in a pet store, a finite of animals that I actually know about. So for instance, there is going to be an axolotl episode. If you're wondering how to spell axolotl, if you wanted to look it up, I know, but I just want to tell you good luck because it's going to take a few attempts before you can. I'll spell it out when I do the actual episode, but that's just a little Easter egg that there is such an animal out there as an axolotl, and the spelling is going to piss you off. Other than that, they're great. But yeah, that's a wild story. I can't wait to get into it when I do the axolotl episode because um, there's some crazy animals out there. Like I don't know if I would want to continue doing the um, that playlist with animals that I literally have never dealt with. Oh, sneeze. Excuse me. So, something real quick there. That was not COVID. I recently got tested. That is allergies. I know because whenever they come in groups of three or more, it's an allergy reaction. But that's something that I wanted to address real quick. So, I actually was raised correctly, where if you're going to sneeze, you don't just do it out into the world. You also don't want to do it into your hand because you use your hand for so many gosh darn things. And you probably don't have hand sanitizer. Although at the moment now, because we're living in the middle of a pandemic, I do have hand sanitizer just sitting on me, as well as usually a mask in one of my pockets. But so you don't want to sneeze in your hand. What you want to do is you want to sneeze into your shoulder. And it's something that's kind of worrying me is that I have been spending a lot of my time now in a mask, and when I sneeze, my mind's so occupied of am I going to sneeze into the mask and then ew, gross, and hopefully I have a spare that I can change into because sneezing in the mask is one of the worst things possible. Almost as bad as burping if you just had something spicy. But I don't want to gross you out. I just want to say that it's a thing that I've noticed that a lot of times it's either that I didn't think I was too worried about sneezing in my mask to actually do it into my shoulder, or some subconscious part of me was like, well, you have a mask on, so if you sneeze, you get the mask, so why would you do it into your shoulder? So I do worry that I'm going to lose all of those good habits, like sneezing into the shoulder. Um, sorry, I'm just thinking about the people that pull their masks down for the worst reasons. They pull their masks down when they talk. It's so counterintuitive. They pulled them. I actually, when I was working at my previous store, I actually turned a corner and someone had pulled their mask down to open mouth cough. And I get it; they didn't want to get phlegm into the mask, but it's just like that's the very reason why you have a mask on, is so that you don't pull them down for the times you're going to be spraying droplets. It blows my mind, and I saw the thought happen, and I felt like I had to address it because it suddenly looked like I was just like squirrel, shiny thing. So. Yeah, I worry some of the habits that I've gotten into. I did see a cute little video of, when you have the mask on, and so whenever you're smiling at people, and then it just took the mask away, and it's like that's what she was actually doing the whole time. So, yeah, a lot of visual cues. Being such a dog lover, and knowing how much they are into dog body language, it's something that I think about a lot. Where these kids growing up, seeing masks on people, and literally, I say literally because I don't fact check here, but about half of your brain lights up when you see a human face. That one I actually believe is a real statistic. Roughly about half of your face lights up when you see the human. Half of your brain lights up when you see the human face. There's so many things that we pick up on because we were designed for face-to-face talking. That if you do a whole bunch of audio-only podcasts, or if we're all walking around with masks, that we're not going to be able, especially the kids, to be able to develop those neural pathways to be able to pick up on those signals. So much like with Lilu, not being able to interact with a lot of dogs, and so she forgets, oh, butt etiquette. I sniff you, you sniff me. That's kind of how it goes, so that I'm not a bad dog. I wonder about those kind of things. Again, I'm not trying to, uh, that isn't even political, but unfortunately, somehow, in a way, it has been made it. So I don't like to delve into politics too much on this. But literally wearing a mask is part of my day to day life. So, I mean, it's something that it'd be almost impossible not to address. I just want to make sure that you understand that there shouldn't be anything involved in politics about just mentioning the fact that hey, we're wearing masks and certain things have changed, and it's something that occurred to me during this week, so I kind of have to tell you about it. If you were just a buddy that I was having a drink with, it's something that would probably come up in conversation too. Hopefully not heatedly, but excuse me. I feel like I'm sinking into this chair a little bit, and I bumped the table again. This time it wasn't even her. Now she's actually calmed down and she's overlaying on her bed. Now it's me that's just banging the table because I, have kind of a tight setup here. Again, this is all just on a old dilapidated laptop on a camera that I don't even know how old it is, and I'm trying to get by and just wonder how much ambient noise you're picking up because it seems like it's only when I try and do this. And I guess it makes sense regarding the time of the day that it is, but it seems like everybody decides to come home whenever I'm doing this thing. So I don't know if you're hearing it, but I'm hearing motorcycles going by, cars and trucks going by way too fast on a road that is quite bumpy. So oftentimes I'll hear cars and trucks bottoming out on my road, which is just nuts to me. Where it's like, don't you care about your suspension? Like, I, it isn't like I have a kid, but I mean, I do have a dog that, what if she does get off leash and runs into the road and you're going too fast in order to be able to stop? And I've already found out that those little green alien kids do not deter people at all from speeding. I mean, it's the same thing with having a baby on board on your car. And I think I've already heard another comedian do this, so it isn't like I'm trying to steal a bit or whatever, but it is a sentiment that I agree with, where it's like, what are you trying to say with the baby on board? Are you trying to say, hey, normally you drive like an asshole, but around me, just for right now, please don't drive like an asshole because I have an infant in the car? Like, it just doesn't make sense. It's like, if it's a careful driver, they're going to be a careful driver no matter who's in the car. If they're an asshole driver, they're going to be an asshole driver and not really give a crap about the baby. So, I mean, having the baby on board thing, I mean, it only just now occurred to me as I'm saying this out loud, so maybe I should watch what I talk about when I don't know what I'm talking about. But maybe that's something along the lines of if there is a car accident, car fire, or something like that, and whoever the rescuer is that comes onto the scene, like firefighter or a cop, sees the baby on board thing and actually thinks to check for an infant. I don't know. That's something that just occurred to me where it's like, hey, you know what? Maybe you're talking out of your butt and you should keep it to yourself, or that might not be what it's actually for. So anyway, yeah, that's the whole thing. So it's tough when you try to put yourself out there and not think too much about what you're talking about because you do want it to be a genuine conversation, even though it's a one-way conversation. You still want it to be genuine, and you realize that a lot of the times you think you know it and you don't. You think you know shit about shit, but you actually know jack squat. And so if there is something on here and it's genuinely something that I was like, okay, should not have said that. Like for instance, if I either got wrong in the nutrition episode of the dogs, if I got wrong one of the things that the dogs can't have, like maybe I was wrong and they can have it all day and it'll never affect their health negatively, I will admit that and apologize. And who knows, maybe even pull that episode if it's something bad enough. But I still don't think that these poor people that are getting lambasted for something that they did, like over 10 years ago, and now they're getting whatever they're currently doing canceled, depending on the severity of it. Obviously, I'm not saying that if you ever kill or rape somebody that you should still be allowed to have a TV show. I mean, I'm not talking about like that extreme, but I just mean I don't want to name examples because I don't really want to get into it, but it's just that there doesn't seem to be, and I think that it's turning around, but there doesn't seem to be a lot of understanding where, well, that was 10-year-old me, and I do apologize that that's who I was, but if I hadn't been that person, then I wouldn't be where I am today, where it's somebody that would not say or think that way, so definitely, I feel like there's a lot to be said for second chances, so I guess I want to have that in mind, as I go forward, where you know at some point I'm probably gonna have something thrown back in my face where it's just like, dude, you said that, and it's just like, oh God, I did. You know, I assume that my intention wasn't maniacal, but if it was something that potentially caused harm, then yeah, you're darn right. I'm gonna be sorry for it, and wish I hadn't said it. But how else can you grow? I mean, you learn more from a mistake than from a success more often than not. So make mistakes. Don't be afraid to make them, and just make sure that you learn from them instead of making the same ones. Like I know this is a weird way to segue into it, but it's just like if you don't look and you don't signal and you suddenly go into a lane and now you have some damage on the side of the car. Yeah, you're an idiot, and yeah, maybe your insurance has to go up, but learn from that, and then maybe from now on you should look and you should signal before you suddenly go into another lane. The reason why I say this is it seems like there's so many people that cut me off in traffic and they have damage from what was probably a very similar incident earlier on, and it's like, oh, you guys didn't learn a darn thing about how to drive. You know what I mean? Like, when you're just driving, all of a sudden they like just cut out in front of you, and you see damage from the place that you would have hit if you weren't vigilant and had hit the brakes, and you're like, oh, okay, you've done this song and dance before and learned nothing from it. So I think the important thing is not to not make mistakes. That's almost impossible growing up in life, but it's just to learn from it and not damage the side of your car a third, a fourth, a fifth time until it's basically undrivable. I don't know. Is that a good analogy? I don't care. Keeping it in. So I guess I should probably wrap this up soon, but I guess some takeaways from this are go out and try new things. That was kind of fun doing a Maple weekend. I definitely had a blast. Uh, Definitely gained a pound and a half. Eating some food that I shouldn't. Learned a lot. Got to have my dog get a lot of new experiences. And to her credit, she actually did do some really good greetings with she did bark at a guy in a beard, and I'm starting to wonder if she has some history with guys in beards, because there's a buddy of mine that lives just right down the street that she seems to have to howl at every time he shows up. So, I mean, who knows what's happening in her past, but to her credit, she did actually have some really good greetings with some people, including a toddler. She was very gentle, so I mean, I consider it, mostly a win when it came time to having her socialize, and it's made me realize it's something I need to do a lot more often. And I'm glad that I have weekends off now, so that I can actually do that more with both of my favorite two of my favorite girls on the planet. But but yeah, go out, try new things, make mistakes. Get into trouble as long as it's not too much trouble, and you're young enough to not have to go to adult court for it. All right, don't. All right, I retract that one, but secretly keeping it in. I just winked and went that way. Did you see that? That was one of the dumber things that I've done on this podcast so far. Oh, what movie is that reminding me of? Oh, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, where he winks on the wrong side and he's like, "Dang it, am I using the wrong eye again?" One of the dumber jokes out of the movie, but still kind of humorous, and it's something that I just did. So, in a way, I forgive myself for calling that one of the dumber jokes when I first saw it, where I was like, "Oh, come on, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 was so great. Guardians of the Galaxy 2 needs to step it up. That's some dumb writing where he's winking from the wrong side of the face." And then I just did it. So I take back everything I said. Sorry about that, writers of that movie. Um, and a good note to end on, I think. I think I'm going to end on me looking a little ridiculous, where I wink on the wrong side. I'm keeping it in as my trademark. So yeah, like I said, hope you had a good weekend. If not, hope you have a good week. If not, try again next week. It is what it is. Do what you can do. I'll be here for you next week as well. So, maybe next Monday I'll catch you in better spirits. And if you came here in bad spirits, hopefully I lifted yours up a little bit. And if not, I don't know. Maybe I helped you get through that hour run. That's. I know that a lot of people listen to stuff while they're doing other stuff. So maybe I helped you get through those dishes, or maybe I helped you get through that run. It's interesting to think about what people might be doing while they listen to me. So, if you were productive while you're listening to me, then even better. More power to you. And yeah, have a good rest of your day and week, and I will see you again on Monday.